Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Everybody having a good Ignite so far? Yeah. I was hoping to see some of those CDW pom-pom hats, but no. You got to go up to the booth to get those. They're in short supply. So let's get started. I have 43 minutes of content and 45 minutes, so please hold all your laughter and applause to the end. My name is Al McKinnon. I'm a solution architect, team lead for CDW on the digital experience productivity team. And my team is made up of solution architects that cover Microsoft 365 solutions, including Microsoft 365 Copilot. I've been with CDW about 7 years. I was with Microsoft for 10, was a technical instructor for 10, and then that's all the math that I want you doing. And that was from an Ignite, gosh, down in Orlando, and I'm a big Yammer/Engage stan. And I have a LinkedIn. You can go there. It's not very interesting. So today, the title, 10,000 organizations want to talk to you about Copilot. If you're wondering about the title, go to the session list and sort alphabetically. Guess who's first? But really, we're going to talk to you. CDW's been doing a lot of work around Copilot from a licensing perspective, from a services perspective, and we're going to talk to you about what we've learned from all that engagement. So who is talking to us and why? What are they telling us? How are we solving their top concerns? And then, of course, we have to have a demo. That's part of this. We'll talk about some of the tools that can help you address some of those concerns. And then we're going to talk about what CDW learned from our experience with customers in our own internal rollout of Copilot. So CDW, you probably know us because you trip over our boxes in the hall. We sell a lot of hardware. But we're also one of the world's largest IT service providers. We have, we cover all the verticals. We're a Fast Track Ready partner. We're a Jumpstart Ready partner. We have all 6 of the solution provider certifications. So we do a lot of Microsoft services. We have a very large Microsoft practice from Azure to modern work to security to collaboration, from devices, from infrastructure to support to managed services. So a lot of people involved in that. Just in my group, the productivity group, there's about 140 licensing specialists. There's 45 pre-sales architects and experts to help out our customers on a pre-sales basis. There's about 150 delivery folks on that team. And we have a dedicated Microsoft PMO that only covers Microsoft products or projects, so they know the technology that they're helping to manage. Last year, and actually the year before as well, we worked on over 4,000 unique and different Microsoft services projects. And I know that sounds like a ridiculous number, but it's true. From a licensing perspective, we manage over 10,000 licensing agreements, whether it's EA, CSP, MPSA, Open, or whatever. And if you're wondering, that's the number, the 10,000. So as we talk to all those organizations about their licensing, because everybody wants to know about Copilot and understand what they need to do, and can they buy it? That was an early question, right? We have sold Copilot to well over 2,000 of those customers, and we've sold more Copilot licenses than any other reseller, or at least that's what Microsoft tells us. So as we have those conversations with those customers and help them with their purchases, we always like to ask, do you need help with that? And that's where our services team comes in. From an engagement perspective, we have delivered over 250 different Copilot engagements, going from the single-day workshops to full-fledged, like help me deploy Purview and Defender and all these things, as well as roll out Copilot to thousands of users. And we've rolled out Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot, to 10,000 of our own users within CDW. So we have a lot of experience. We talk to a lot of people. I talked to all our internal people, so those folks that I mentioned earlier. I surveyed all of them, and I talked to our leads on delivery, licensing, pre-sales, and other groups, and I asked them 3 big questions about what we've learned. And the first question is, in our discussions with customers, have they been more concerned about technical readiness, end-user readiness, or something else? And you can see, well, maybe, I hope it's not too small, but actually about 75% of the customers responded around technical readiness. So we see green is concerned about both, blue is technical readiness, orange is end-user readiness. So about 75% are concerned about technical readiness, and about 60% concerned with end-user readiness, and then there's 5% that are probably concerned about cost or something like that. So what we took from that is that customers are recognizing the deployment and rollout of Copilot as being kind of a unique animal, right? It's both a combination of getting your environment technically ready and getting your end users ready. You can't just throw licenses out to folks. So the second question was, for those customers that were most concerned with technical readiness, what were the top concerns? And the word cloud here, right? So data security, data governance, security and governance, security concerns, data leakage, sensitive data discovery. There's an interesting thing, I'm going to talk about it as a thread kind of through the presentation, but there's this idea that if I deploy Copilot into my environment, that suddenly people are going to be able to get to things that they shouldn't be able to get to. And Copilot is going to help make it easier to find those things. So we're going to talk about that and why that's a good concern and not a good concern. For those customers concerned about end user readiness, what things did they mention most often? Training, relevant training, use cases, ROI, 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 value. Our takeaway from this is that customers want to have effective enablement strategies for their end users so they can get quick value out of that, and not only do that, but they need to be able to measure that ROI, right? Copilot is not inexpensive, so you have to go and justify buying more or renewing your licenses as the time is coming up for folks. So those are the top concerns. So we came away with 3 big concerns: technical readiness. Well, I killed this slide in my copy. I guess I didn't kill it for the one they did, but we'll skip on. 3 top concerns: data governance, data security, access management. Gosh, they're using my old deck. Good. Well, it'll be fine. Here's a set of tools, and I'm not going to spend too much time here because I'm going to demo some of these tools, but I put these concerns around data governance, data security, access management. We'll call that technical readiness, being concerned about technical readiness, and that's getting your environment ready for Copilot. People are, again, concerned about data being exposed, and here's a set of tools that you can use to verify or check out, whether your tenant is ready, whether you're in good shape, and I'm going to demo most of these tools when we get there. Number 2 is deployment and adoption, and the tools that we can use to solve that problem for customers that we encourage and help customers with. Teams, Engage, and SharePoint, great solutions for sharing information, so kind of pushing information to users with SharePoint and an effective portal there, and then Teams and Viva Engage for letting your end users interact with each other and share ideas. I like to say that success breeds success. I know a lot of people say that, but that's what it's about with Copilot, is somebody will discover a prompt that works for them, and they'll share it with others, and then somebody will say, what would make that even better? This would make it better, and the next thing you know, you have people from across your whole company collaborating on generating these incredible prompts to make them more productive. And then Viva Learning and Copilot Academy, if you assign a user a license of Microsoft 365 Copilot, then you have the option of turning this on in Viva Learning, but they get access to Copilot Academy, which is a set of curated training from Microsoft that shows up in their teams and helps them get started. Number 3 concern is the return on investment and value. And again, when you have Copilot licenses in your tenant, you get the Copilot dashboard inside of Viva Insights. You get this much information if you have less than 50 Copilot licenses. You get this much if you have over 50, and you get this much more when you go all in with Viva Insights. And if you go all in, you can get information down to the end user and down to the department and down to the application and down to what they're doing in the application, and then assign like a labor cost. And Viva Insights will tell you that, well, these users save this much time in Teams, and if you take that time, that 10 hours that they save a month, and you put your $72 an hour or whatever that number is on that, you can see what your financial ROI is. It takes a little bit of work, but CDW, we use that and found it to be very effective. And then usage reports. There are usage reports in the tenant that can tell you what people are doing and where they're using Copilot, like which apps they're using it in and so on. And then Microsoft Forms for gathering anecdotal information from your end users on their experience and their value. I want to talk about deployment paths. This first one here, pretty simplistic. You've probably seen this one. Basically, you make your business case, and then you do your technical readiness and your end user readiness, And I like this because it shows that you need to kind of do both and in parallel, and then you do your deployment. We think this is overly simplistic. It's good, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's a little too simplistic for what actually needs to happen to be effective. What we're seeing at a lot of customers is they make their business case and then they want to make this a linear experience, and they get to the technical readiness piece and they stop, and they might buy 3 or 5 licenses for IT, and they want IT to kind of kick the tires and see what Copilot is going to do and how it works. And that's all valid, but then we've seen a lot of customers get stuck there and say like, oh my gosh, I've got, my SharePoint is a mess. I don't have any data governance, I don't know what's going on, and they stop there and they don't move forward. So I talked to one very large consulting organization, and they had 7,500 SharePoint sites. And they guessed probably maybe 500 or 600 of those were actually like valid, useful ones. The other ones, the rest of them were just have been there forever because they let people create SharePoint sites. So they started a project with a group of folks to look at those sites. They were going to re-architect SharePoint, put it in a nice hierarchy, use metadata and tags, all this stuff. But it was an 18-month project. They did not want to wait to finish that project because if they waited 18 months to start with Copilot, they would be behind their competitors who were using Copilot to generate proposals and make their field folks more effective. So they decided to run that project in parallel with moving ahead with Copilot. So what we talk to our customers about is a more optimized deployment path, and I apologize, it's a lot more boxes, but it does make sense, and there's 2 phases that we talk about. The first phase is kind of the same, right? You do your business case, but we talk about initial technical readiness. What is the basic, like minimum level of stuff that you need to do and check to make sure your environment is in good enough shape to move forward with Copilot and you won't get burned. And then we do an enablement planning, and then we do a pilot, and that pilot piece is important, right? Deployment, I guess it kind of fits in that deployment, box on the previous slide, but it really should be a unique thing because you do this pilot, you involve a bunch of people from across the business, and then you have to confirm your business case. We made some assumptions. We asked the business to invest in 100 licenses of Copilot. That's a lot of money. So at the end of our pilot, were our assumptions correct? And if they are correct, we get to go to phase 2, which is continuing with technical readiness, because really that never ends, ideally. We're refining our enablement. What did we learn in the pilot? What worked, what didn't work? And then we're going to extend Copilot, and then we move into our phase deployment. And actually, I'll talk a little bit about each one of these on the next couple slides. So a lot more boxes, 2 phases, a little more complicated, but probably more realistic to what organizations should be thinking about and how they roll out Copilot. So again, phase 1, business case. We talk to customers about an overall AI strategy and aligning that AI strategy with their business strategy, right? Nobody should be doing AI just because we feel like doing AI, right? Why are we doing AI? What are we hoping to get out of it? Are we hoping to put more proposals on the street? Are we hoping to close customer calls faster? What are we trying to get out of it? What impact do we think it's going to have? And then we have to figure out what success is going to look like and how we're going to measure those things that we're trying to do with Copilot. Then we start doing our initial technical readiness. Back in the day, in between those other jobs, I worked on a lot of security projects, and we would do these things called business impact analysis, BIAs, and it was around availability. So we'd look at all the systems and all the applications and rate them on criticality, and the more critical they were, the more money and time we invested in making sure they were available. For Copilot, you're going to do that same process, but you're going to put on your disclosure lens, and you're going to look at your data and say, out of all this data that my company has or my organization has, what is the risk or what is the impact if that information gets into the wrong hands? And then based on that impact and that risk, you apply your protections to that. So same kind of strategy, protect your most sensitive and important information first and work your way down. Enablement planning, and this is my favorite quote, and this is from Lisa Bell, who is our adoption services lead, and she's awesome. Thought leadership does not create use cases, only usage creates use cases. So we try to move companies from brainstorming on what are the 10 use cases we can give users to start working on with Copilot. And if they have like a sales department and a financial department and a support department, they're trying to think of 10 use cases for each of those departments, and they get bogged down in that. And a better idea is, let's think of 2 or 3 things that we want all users to be able to benefit from, and then let's put this tool in the hands of those people across those parts of our business. Let them play with it, let them talk to each other, let them work with it, and they'll tell us what works and what doesn't work and what they'd like to see more of and what they'd like to see less of. So get it in the hands of people. If you want to find out what your use cases are, get it in the hands of the people that you are hoping to use it. Then we do our pilot, and I can't overemphasize the importance of getting a diverse group of people in that pilot. If your pilot is all IT people, they're not doing all the business functions. If your pilot is executives, executives, no offense if any executives in here, executives, a lot of executives, maybe not you, they don't manage their own calendar, right? They're not reading their own email. They're not creating their own documents. They have other people that do that stuff for them. So they're not always good candidates to be in the pilot. They want to be first. They always want to be first, but that doesn't mean they should be first. So think of that. Make sure your group is diverse. You're setting expectations that if you're going to be in this pilot, we're going to expect you to contribute at least 2 to 3 hours a week and giving us feedback on what's working and hearing us give you ideas on how to use it better. And you want to make sure there's a good way for those folks to engage with you and to engage with each other. And then we confirm our business case, as we talked about, right? Were we successful? And if you don't know, then you go back to the beginning. You didn't do that, right? And then phase 2, we're continuing our technical readiness. Maybe we got approval to do things like Purview information protection or cloud app discovery, cloud app security. We're refining our enablement. I can tell you at CDW, we did a lot of, it was virtual, but it was live training for end users, and hardly anybody showed up. So they were all more comfortable doing the online stuff or learning on their own. So when we came to the wider deployment, we did fewer of those classes. So that's your chance to sit and say what worked in our pilot, what didn't work. And we also, in our pilot, we got use cases. People would say, wouldn't it be great if Copilot could connect to our custom document management system or our legal case matter system and pull in information from that? Wouldn't that be great? Great. That's what we're going to do when we talk about extending Copilot and making it even more useful to our users. Then we do our phase deployment, and depending on how large of an organization you is, the idea is you're going to group those waves or phases into manageable groups and numbers of people so that you can give them the right attention as you roll it out. And then you should also have a plan for that continuous engagement and refinement for that whole process. So here's the thing again, and the one thing I'll emphasize on this slide is that bottom piece is a continuous loop, right? That never ends. Copilot came out last November, right? It's November now. A lot of people, your Copilot licenses might be coming up for renewal. You should look at it and say, did we get value out of that? If not, what did we do wrong? Should we buy more? Should we call CDW and get help? Yeah, that's good. Do that. Okay. Demo. My laptop went to sleep. Too far away. Okay. Right. How's that? Can you see that? Thank you. It's down there, but I don't know if it's up there. All right, so I'm taking kind of putting on the persona. My organization is thinking about Copilot. I need to know, what potential exposure I have, what things should I be thinking of, what do I need to know about just to get started. So I'm going to talk about solving that technical readiness piece. And we're going to start out in the compliance portal, which is still labeled Purview, but this is the compliance portal. And I'm going to show you a couple solutions that you can do here. And when I come back to the presentation, I have a slide on licensing for this. I'm not going to read the slide, but everybody always wants to know, what do I need to be able to do that? So I'm in the compliance manager. I'm going to go to data loss prevention. And there is a tool. This is the new portal. And don't tell Microsoft, but this loads really slow. It's painful. So I had to preload it to get it going. But this Data Explorer piece under here, when you get to the new portal, there is, this is tracking constantly based on the indexing. Information by sensitive information type, by sensitivity labels, by retention labels and trainable classifiers. And I think there's like 18 or 20 that Microsoft makes, and then you can make your own to look for, like, if you have a custom customer order number, something like that. We're going to look at sensitive information types. Again, I forget what the number is. I think they're up to like 80 of these. 44. There it is right in front of me. Let's look at Social Security numbers. And I'm going to change this view a little bit and just show you these tiles. So this is telling me, when I highlighted Social Security numbers, there are 17 items in Exchange, 11 items in OneDrive, and 10 items in SharePoint that have that type of sensitive information in it. And I'll say first, you have to be in a certain role within the Compliance Manager tool and have the right permissions to be able to see this. Not anybody can just go in here and start drilling down. But if I drill down into SharePoint, it'll actually show me the sites where that information is. And I can actually see the two sites. I can open these sites and it'll give me a list of files. I'm afraid if I do that, it takes a long time to load. So you'll have to trust me on that. But this is telling me that, like, this site, and this is a demo environment, Contoso, if you didn't see. In this, there's new employee onboarding site. I'll drill down and look at the kind of files that are in here. Is it appropriate that those types of files are in that site? And then I'll look at that site and see, well, what kind of protections are on that site? Are the permissions set properly? Do I have Purview information protection? Do I have labels assigned to those sites so that documents get protected automatically? And then I'll go back to the folks that own those sites and I'll talk to them about the concerns I have, and we'll get rid of the files if they're not supposed to be there. But if they are supposed to be there for some business purpose, then we'll start doing, appropriate protections for those sites where that data might be. And this is, if you have Microsoft 365, you have this tool. Second solution I want to look at is just the Compliance Manager and Compliance Score. Has anybody looked at Compliance Score before? Wow, no way. How about Secure Score? Okay, so Compliance Score, you've got that too. Similar stuff, hard to say. We have discussions and debates over beer all the time, security, compliance, but there is a difference. And again, the new portal loads a little slow. But this Compliance Score is basically made up of two things, just like Secure Score, and there's an adoption score as well. But there's things that Microsoft is responsible for doing. Here it is. Zoom in a little bit. So my points are terrible. 178 out of 9,300, not very good. Microsoft, 9855 out of their 10,000. So SaaS is a shared security model, right? Microsoft does some, I do some. This is telling me that, well, actually, it doesn't tell me that I'm not doing it. It tells me that I haven't indicated that I'm doing it. So in this, like, where does that number come from? We have assessments. And let me zoom in again. So we have assessments. There is every Office 365, Microsoft 365 tenant has the data protection baseline for Microsoft 365. That's a free one that they include. If you are any US government cloud customers? Okay. So GCC, GCI, DoD clouds, you get several CMMC assessments. If you are an M365 E5 customer, you get 3 more of these regulatory assessments. There are state assessments, there are country assessments, there's HIPAA and SOC and all kinds of acronyms and things like that. There's a whole list of them, and you can do up to 3 for free, included with your M365 E5 license. And if you drill down into these, I was hoping they would load faster because I looked at them before the session. But if you look down into these, it'll tell you what actions you can take to improve your score. And you can go into those actions someday, and you can check the box and saying, yeah, I'm doing this, and that'll increase your score. Yeah, so here's about, right? So this is this data protection baseline from NIST, from ISO, from FedRAMP, from GDPR, and then a little bit of Microsoft secret sauce in there as well. And here's my improvement actions, a list of things that I can be doing. And there's a whole bunch of, if you want to narrow it down by different control family. This doesn't mean that I'm not doing them, it just means that I haven't gone in here and bought into this tool. So if you buy into the tool, you can go in here and you can go into the individual items And if you say, oh, this is we want to take on Purview information protection labels and classify all our information, then you go in, you go into that thing and you assign somebody to own it. You can put in a date as to when you expect to be compliant, and then you can track it through this. And when you're finished it, you check the box, and you would get these 27 points, and it would start to add up. So again, it can take some investment. But if you're curious about what best practices should I be following in my tenant to make sure that I have data governance in place, compliance score and this default baseline will help you get there. The next thing I want to talk about is, and this is in the security portal or the Defender portal, way down here. This is a really incredible solution, the Defender for cloud apps. Anybody using that? Couple people, good. So Defender for Cloud Apps has a couple things that it can do. One, it can act as a CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker, and you can funnel your internet traffic through the CASB, and it'll see what folks are doing, and you can apply policies, and you can block what they do. But this, it's based on this app catalog, which I think has like 34,000 different SaaS apps that Microsoft has gone through and evaluated. They'll recognize it, they'll evaluate it, and they rate it on a risk score of 0 to 10, with 0 being worst, 10 being best. So just to look at, here's Viva Engage on the top, just happens to be there. And what is it looking at? It's looking at standard stuff, like is there a privacy policy? Is there a DR plan? Are they following all these security best practices? Do they have compliance? And Microsoft really focuses very well on compliance, so they have all these things in here, GDPR from a legality perspective, so that's a 10. Let's go, and we're going to move this down. Let's go to 3. Oh, actually, I want to go to one thing. I'm going to go Gen, and I'm going to pick generative AI. And I will tell you, so there's 99 that are between 0 and 3. There's 99 of them. There's, I think, over 650 generative AI apps that Microsoft recognizes and can catalog. And I can tell you when I started practicing for this demo, like a month ago, there was 480 of them. So they're continually adding to this as we see the growth of AI solutions out there. And I'm just going to take the top one in the list. No offense to those folks. But what they're looking at here, we see, like, is there a DR plan? Not that we know of. You know, they don't support MFA. They allow you to remember your password. They don't support SAML. We don't know about their pen testing. We don't know about any of their compliance things. So based on all those things that they're either not doing or not advertising well, they're down in this risk score of 3, right? And the interesting thing with this, you know, oh, great to know. What do I do with it? You can actually create a policy. And in this policy, category equals generative AI, risk score equals 0 to 3. And I can tag those apps as unsanctioned. And I can take this policy and I can push it to cloud security, cloud app security. If I'm using it as a CASB, I can push it down to Microsoft Defender, and Defender on the endpoints will block unsanctioned apps. So if you don't want users using these risky apps, whether it's Gen AI or whatever other category, and you're using Defender for endpoints, you can push this down there. I think you need Defender for endpoint P2 to do that. And you can also use these policies if you have a secure gateway like Zscaler. Microsoft supports natively, like, I think 5 of them, like iBoss and a few others. So you can use these policies on those devices and enforce that and block those risky apps. So that's the catalog. And then you can do this discovery, and I'll just do the easiest one. You can do continuous discovery if you're using endpoint, Defender for endpoint, or using Cloud App Security as a CASB. Otherwise, you can upload your logs from your device into this tool, and it'll pick out those apps because it recognizes the app. So just to go to the next page here, you pick your source for the apps, and you can see there's Blue Coat, Barracuda, Checkpoint, Cisco, Juniper. Like, there's a lot on here. So if you're using any of these devices, then you can take the log files from that device and upload it into Cloud App Security, and it'll give you a report. It looks like this one. I'll zoom in a little bit. And what's fun here, so this ran, and I see I've got 5,800 users, found 128 apps. Could highlight over here. Like in the risk levels, here 890 of my 5,800 users are using apps that I've classified as high risk. And here's the apps by category. Red is unsanctioned. And I can actually drill down into any one of these. So here's a risky one. If I click on that, I'll see the users that are using that. And I'll be able to see where they're using it from. And then I'll be able to work with them and say, hey, we don't think you should be using this. Or I can create a policy. I can work with this discovery, and I can create a policy from here. So if you want to see, the point here is like, if you don't think your people are already using AI apps, they are. They are. So how are you going to find out what they are? This is a great way to do it. The cloud discovery piece, I think, is included like M365 E3. The ability to do the blocking as a CASB is a M365 E5 solution, and there's a few things in between. There's a Office 365 app discovery, but it only discovers things that compete with Office 365, so you're not going to get the AI stuff. So there's a little bit of license variance here and there, but it's a really neat tool. If you can get a log from your firewall or your gateway, you can get a lot of value out of it. The next thing I want to show you is in Teams, and this is, I think, super important because what I want to talk to you about is the difference between a public and a private team, right? Public team means people can find it and they can request to join it. I have to let them in to be a member. That's great. Private teams are hidden. You can't find them, so you have to be invited to that team. And that's fine. But here at my company, I've got this Mark 8 project team. That's kind of a confidential team. I don't really want that to be public. I'm not sure, but I can look in the team and I can see the people that are members. Everything looks appropriate. Here's the owners. All right, Nestor, Megan, I trust them that they know what they're doing. So that should be fine. Then I look up here and I see an email address. What else do I get when I create a team? I get an email box. What else? A group and SharePoint site. So let me go to the SharePoint Admin Center. Here's my active sites. Here, let's see, down to the M's. Mark 8 project team. And if I look at the membership here, well, it looks about the same people. But if I go down to site members, eventually get down there and scroll down, here's something that's interesting. Everyone except external users. That is a SharePoint permission. When you create a public team, that group, everyone except external users, is a member of that site. Members can add things, delete things, and change things in that SharePoint site. Is that your intention? Maybe, maybe not, right? It's a good thing for, like we have an intranet site and everyone but external users can use it. But the Mark 8 project team has got sensitive information in it. I probably don't want everybody to be in there. So I can do a couple things. I can remove them. I can go back to the team and I can edit it and I can change it into a private team. I would want to talk to the owners to do that. But the other thing I can do in the settings here, and this is part of SharePoint Premium, there's a feature called Restricted Site Access. And you can tell it's premium because it's got the little word, little indicator for pro here. It's part of SharePoint Premium or SharePoint Advanced Management, depending on which blog you read. And if I check this box, that restricts the SharePoint site access to only members of the capital T team, right? So you have to be an owner or a member of the team to be able to get to that SharePoint site. And for those types of confidential projects or semi-confidential, that's probably what you wanted. So a good thing to do to get ready for Copilot is look at your public teams and make sure that every team is appropriately labeled or set based on how it should be. Right? The last thing I want to talk about real quickly is the SharePoint Premium. And you'll find those things under SharePoint Advanced Management. Again, depends on when and where you read your blog. This is a lot of additional features to help you manage and control and report on your SharePoint and Teams environment. And the two things I want to talk about are the data access governance reports and the site lifecycle management. Data access governance reports. This is actually part of SharePoint Premium, but also if you have M365 E5, you get these reports as well. So you'll notice like there's no pro next to these because I have an E5 license and a SharePoint Premium. So I can get reports based on sharing links, anyone, people in your organization, shared externally. And I just shared one site externally. And I can see what it is. And based on that, if I like, oh, I need to take immediate action, then I can click on restrict site access and put that in place. Better tact would be to go back to the Contoso News owner, site owner, and say, hey, are you sure you want this to be shared externally? And I'm sure everybody's looked at their SharePoint and OneDrive sharing permission levels. I'm doing, because there's two things that you can move up and down to make sure those are appropriate for your environment. You can search for files that have sensitivity labels and see where they have gone throughout your organization. And then you can look for reports, find sites that have been shared with everyone except external users. Interestingly, public team sites don't show up in that report. Maybe the key thing here is that because they were added as opposed to getting on there naturally. But then from that report, if you find a site, you can actually kick off an automatic access review, and it'll send a message to the site owners saying, hey, we see that there's content in here that's shared externally. You need to certify that that's appropriate. And it asks them to check that and get back to you to tell them, so they tell you that they did it. Where was I? Here we go. Oh, and so the last thing to show you, the site lifecycle management. Whoop, wrong thing. Here we go. The policy. The inactive site policies. The site ownership is where you can enforce like a minimum number of owners per site. I found that to be, and it's in preview, so I would say it's not quite ready, but it's pretty good. You can create these inactive site policies, and I'll tell you, I'll just create one real quick, but it will generate a list of inactive sites based on your criteria, and then it'll send an email to the owners of that site or the admins or both, and then they have to certify that the site is still active. And if they don't do that within 3 months of getting that email, then you can decide what you want to do. Do you want to not do anything about it? Do you want to set the site to be read-only? Or if you have Microsoft 365 Archive set up, you can take that site and you can move it over to Azure storage. And once it gets over to Azure storage, Copilot can't train on it anymore. So we have a lot of customers that are taking their older SharePoint sites. They're not quite sure they should delete them, but you can move them over to Archive. If the total storage between your active sites and your archive sites is below the total allotment that you have for SharePoint, then there's no charge for moving them over there. There is a charge for moving them back, so you want to think about it carefully before you go into that. Okay. All right, let me jump back to my presentation. So we talked about a bunch of solutions for just looking at your environment to see if you might have some exposure. Where is your sensitive data? Why is your sensitive data there? Are my teams set appropriately? Are my SharePoint sites active, and so on. So a lot of value that you can get started. And here's that license slide. I told you I'm not going to read to you, but you download the deck later. You can get it. And that link is to the matrix. It's like an 8-page matrix. And you should believe the matrix before you believe what I have on the slide. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is CDW's keys to success with our rollout. We rolled out Microsoft 365 Copilot to 10,000 users. And it's an ongoing process. But the first thing I'll say is we had a really strong partnership between CDW IT, delivery, and pre-sales teams. So delivery and pre-sales, we wanted Copilot immediately. Our customers are going to be using it. We got to figure out how to use it, and we got to figure out what help they need with it. But we had to get IT to buy off on that. CDW, 15,000 people in the organization, they're not going to let delivery just install any old tool in there. They had to do a full vetting of that. But we worked very closely with them. CDW IT let our delivery team and pre-sales teams sit in on technical workshops that Microsoft provided to us. And a really good partnership, and continues to be that way. We have people from our delivery team helping to do the internal training and rollout of Copilot, so it's a really good synergy there. We also had a strong partnership with our Microsoft team, or still have one, and I'll give a shout out to Matt Melhus, is our modern work specialist. Matt worked his tail off using Copilot to help us build and document what our technical readiness and end user readiness plans would be, and we used that to make project plans and to really get things started and to get approval of management to move forward with the 10,000 licenses. So that strong partnership really paid off. Our CISO, and it might be Chief Security Officer instead of CISO, is the executive sponsor of the Copilot project as well as other AI projects. Two things from that. One, important to get security involved early, otherwise they'll put a block on it, right, just when you're ready to go. And second, that gives people confidence. Oh, if the CISO is executive sponsor, it must be a secure app, must be okay to use. So we got the vote of confidence for people to be able to use it and feel comfortable doing it. We got into the early adopter program as quickly as we could. We got 300 people from across all the different business units and teams, got them all collaborating together, and it was really neat. We used, we developed, the royal we being somebody else, not me, but developed this communication plan, continuous communication plan, this 8-week cycle of just try it. So we ran, as we did our full deployment, we ran people through like an 8-week cycle, and we would start a new cycle like every 3 weeks to get to 10,000 people, and we just kept rolling and rolling and rolling, and this continuous engagement to making sure that they were using it, and we didn't wait for them to get ideas, we kept giving them ideas. And then we used a SharePoint site to push information to them, and we used an engaged community, and the engaged community was incredible because, I mentioned this earlier, but we had salespeople saying, hey, I'm trying to do this, and I need some help, and the delivery people would chime in, and somebody from operations would chime in, and we had people working across the way, and you found AI enthusiasts from all over the company. It wasn't just the technology people, it was salespeople who were like, this is awesome. Their favorite thing is meeting notes, like automatic meeting notes, and just say, I used to take me a week to get meeting notes back to the customer. Now it's like, meeting's over, click, here's the meeting notes. We use surveys. We went all in with Viva Insights. Oh man, rats. So old slide. Maybe I'll try to get them to put the new slide up there. We actually did a case study with Microsoft, a customer story with Microsoft, talking about how we used Viva Insights to get information about good performing teams, poor performing teams, like, hey, these guys are really knocking it out of the park with Copilot. This other team, not doing too much with it at all. Okay, what are you guys doing that works? And we'd try to get people from this team in the room. They talk about it. Oh, I didn't even think of that. And next thing you know, this team is rising along with the others. So, and we can validate after, I think it was after like 8 or 9 months of using it, our end users are saving about 10 hours a month with Copilot. And if you do the math on, salary and time, and we assume that the salespeople aren't using their free time, that their found time to go golfing, but they're actually using it to sell more stuff, then there's a huge ROI for CDW. Oh, they let me keep this slide. Okay. Anyway, we're in booth 338. I'm going to be there the next 2 afternoons. So if you want to come see me, you can. We have another breakout tomorrow. You can come to our booth. We have an AI avatar based on Azure that you can interact with, and you can order actually not coffee, sorry, lattes and cappuccinos or macalotes or something, I don't know what they are. But you can order them from the avatar and see this proof of concept. Pretty neat, although it's very noisy up there. But the person who helped develop that, Nathan Cartwright, really smart. He's got a session tomorrow morning. John Mayles is one of our directors in my group. He did his interview earlier today, but due to the internet, that's online forever. And then another hub session tomorrow. Inscape is a licensing and cost management tool that we give away to our customers. It also includes a bunch of virtual Copilot training. So good stuff. I thought my light would turn red when I run out of time, but I got 40 seconds.
Your pilot, how long was your pilot? Because earlier you said it took 18 months.
Oh, how long did it take us to, the pilot. The pilot was about 4 months. Yeah, from beginning, like planning who's going to be in it, to when we wrapped it all up and proved our value prop, and then got the approval to move forward on the additional 10,000 licenses, yeah. And how long was the deployment? I mean, we're still going. We forced people to take a training before we gave them the license. And if they didn't take the training, we gave them a little bit of time. If they didn't take the training, well, I guess you're not interested. Take your license, give it to somebody else. Oh, I'm getting played out. But come find us in the booth. Come see our other sessions. If you need help with Copilot, your Copilot deployment or licensing, please talk to CDW. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you.